Hello.
Hello. So it's good afternoon here. It's past 12, right, in the UK, am I correct?
Yes, it is just half past 12 here in London.
Brilliant. So welcome, Daven Lee, to this channel. I am the Curated Shelf in Brussels. Welcome to this channel, and welcome also to this interview process. Really good to have you here. For those who already know me, welcome back to the Curated Shelf, and thank you for subscribing and joining us today. This is an interview that I'm doing with Daven Lee, and Daven Lee is also interviewing me about the power of the Yin Oracle. So we're going to go straight into it. Thank you, everybody who's joining us. If you want more information on the deck, please look at the description box below. You'll get further information on where you can find out more about the project, where you might be able to get the cards from and so forth, and how things are going. So really just, get to know that from the description box. But for today, we're going to just have a bit of a discussion about this deck, how I've been working with it, and kind of like the highlights of it. So first of all, I was sent this deck. I think David, am I right in thinking it was November that you sent me this deck?
That sounds about right. Yes. And it's the power of the Yin Oracle Deck. Yes. And you did a fabulous review. You totally get the deck, and I just loved how it resonated with you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing it with it. I know that I actually ended up with, we all had a sample, which is great because we got a real taste for the cards to come. What was really exciting to find out was that actually you were still working on adding to the deck, taking on what the feedback was, which really was amazing. So I'm really glad that the reviews helped you to tweak the deck and work with it more and think more of kind of like also how people are using this. And I think that was just amazing to be part of the creativity process. Actually, I want to say that. So thank you.
Yes, well, the Yin is about community and co-creation too, and fluidity. There's a time when it's time for things to be set, but that creative process gets to be really fluid and responsive. So, yeah.
So if you could tell me a little bit about how you came to this project, how it's tapping into your own expertise and experiences and skills.
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. So my work is called The Power of the Yin, and it's I call it an original body of work that has come together from many different influences. One of the core influences is Qigong, which is a meditative movement practice, very slow, that works with moving energy. It's part of Chinese medicine, and it exists within that context of thinking about yin and yang, the great polarities, and also the 5 elements, which I won't go into in depth. But in my discovery of Qigong and learning to practice it, I discovered the yin in myself, and I discovered it as a very powerful force of nature, presence of nature. Whereas before, if somebody had, I felt that the yin, which is often associated with the feminine, was weak, ineffectual, pathetic, not the way to be in the world, too vulnerable, actually, too sensitive to be in the world. And the thing about Qigong is it is a physical movement. And so it actually, and the forms are archetypes as well. And so as you practice the slow movements of Qigong, you're actually embodying the energy of the archetype. So an archetype itself is an energy of something, an essence of something in its sort of pure form. And we embody many archetypes at different times, or they can really help us, what do I want to say? Well, they help us know ourselves, they help us express ourselves more clearly, and they align us with something larger than ourselves, as well as just the elements that are everywhere in nature. So as the more I would practice this, the more I came to embody this, and I came to embody the yin, meaning I understood it physically within me beyond and deeper than my cognitive understanding, in such a way that I could actually move in the world and have been able to move in the world in a different way. I feel myself in a different way. And so out of that, my work, The Power of the Yin, has developed. And out of that, this deck has developed. So each one of these cards, I think of it as a transmission. And it's a collaborative transmission. It's a transmission from myself and the artist who I've been working with, Yael Bernhard. And so they carry an energy, they carry a message. And there's two sides to the cards. You've been showing the image side. On the back is the text side, which is what I've written. And these are a guide to the yin. So the other aspect of why I created the deck and my own journey with the power of the yin is that many of us don't understand that it's a power. We don't know how to turn to that part of ourselves. We don't know how to trust it or cultivate it, develop it, and understand it as a power that we can use every day in our lives. And so these cards are a prompt to remind you, to help you develop it and cultivate it, and to really come into a very intimate, personal, and embodied relationship with this energy. And, you know, the larger, of course, purpose is that this is something that we've forgotten the kind of the other half of nature of yin, and our world is really suffering because of it. So to just bring that awareness and the practice and bring it back into the world as something that is respected and revered as the power that it is.
Great explanation. Thank you so much. It's interesting, isn't it, how we have this flow of conversation, you know, we just start off and then it's kind of like, wow, okay, you know, that really goes into the depth of this deck and how it can really invoke those feelings, you know. So it's really interesting to hear you now that say that, you know. So I received the deck, I think, yes, as I mentioned, in November, or it was well before the Yule period.
Yes.
And it's been an interesting journey. So I'll just say a little bit about when I received the deck and how it's been for me in terms of
yes, I would love to.
You know, as many of you know, probably from my channel already, you know, I am someone who reads sporadically for others, but really also I like to also have decks for more than just tarot and oracle in the traditional forms, or what, you know, many of us also know as kind of like in the outside. It's always going down to this divination. And for me, divination is amazing, but there is so much more that images can give us. And that's what I've always with tarot and oracle. That's what actually brought me into the practice in the first place many years.
Fascinating.
It was this feeling of psyche, and psyche from what today is seen as psychology, but also psyche from more the ancient period, which is the soul. So really how kind of like the cards for me are layers into the soul, and how much the soul has a voice through image.
I love that.
Yeah, this deck really came at a time where I personally in my life, you know, something I haven't said so much on the channel, but I think some people already know who know me on this channel. You know, I've been working through a lot of personal issues in terms of where I come from, the things that happen in my life. And this deck came at a point where I really had my creativity grow from last summer. It just really, it came out of nowhere. It wasn't something I was expecting. It kind of like just made its own path into my life and said, I'm coming and I'm here to stay. So I was like, okay. And this deck really was an amazing moment for me because it intersected at a point in my time where I'm really allowing the voice from within to be heard over the voices of without.
Yes.
You know, what other people might think. And I, like many others, I can't say everyone, but I hear a lot, you know, I grew up with this whole what everybody thinks about you and our place in society and be the wallflower and this kind of thing. And I'm just at a point in my life, I'm kind of like, that's never been who I was at the first. And I'm, you know, like many, I think a lot of those with the female energy identification, we're trying to find our way in the female form. We're still discovering. It's kind of like, because there's so many layers of archetypes and influences of the past that have had an influence on how I think. You know, I know that I see myself sometimes and my female energy through masculine eyes. I'm like, that's not what this is. A rediscovery, right? A reclaiming.
Yes.
So anyway, one of the cards, and you know, and I'll talk about the prompt at the back as well. One of the cards always, here it is. She always comes out recently. It's this one. There's a few where I pull them sporadically, and I honestly have to say, these are the kind of cards where it'd be like 1 a.m. and I'd pull one out. That was what was happening. It was like so it was like a 1 a.m. card. And an interesting one. This was one of the more recent ones where I pulled her out and I just thought, what's she trying to do here? And it just looked like she was doing all these contortions. I was like, what's going on here? And, you know, she made me smile and giggle because, you know, and I wrote something, I think I posted it as well. I wrote something like, and these were my words, so I was like, are you trying to piece yourself together or dancing, you know, or is it both? And it's about the kid who looks like she's doing a play, but actually she's trying to figure herself out, you know, and pull the pieces together. So there's a slight sadness about it, of course. You know, there's kind of like, what happens? Why would a kid want to piece themselves together? But some of us go through that. Some of us go through that in life, and you know, in this one it talks about, you know, at the back it says, you know, trace the mysterious, circuitous paths that lead you to yourself. Make it a life study. Tirelessly seek the shining jewel of your true self. And, you know, and that was really what it was. It was like a true self moment, kind of like it, you know, I can't be my true self until I find out what the pieces of my true self are, because they're scattered, you know. And many of people who know what it's like when we go through that healing process, especially when it's past healing, is that there's a lot of retrieval that has to happen, because part of trauma is to leave that part of us behind. Yes. We cannot associate with that because it's too dangerous, yet we can't forget what happened because we don't want it to reoccur. And it's one of the biggest issues of trauma, is the horrible vicious cycle of trying to dissect a part of yourself off, because it's so scary and so kind of like joined to what happened. And at the same time, because we don't want a reoccurrence, we kind of like keep it in our head. And it's a very strange part of psyche, soul. It's so sad. And I think that this was the card that really was like speaking to finding bits of me, you know, all over again. So yeah, these cards I think are just so good. And the other one that I mean, there's so many that I really liked here, like this one as well, like so beautiful, right up to you. When I was looking at this one, all this light coming through, but with nature. And I think, you know, I mentioned it to you that I really like the geometry of this deck, you know, and the and how holiness, you know, in fact, I was just reading here, you are holy, how holiness and reverence, and yet the shapes and the light of the world, they all come together, right? So it's just this play of kind of like, you know, the divine and you know, the create an altar for yourself. That's what this says. Bow in. I've never heard that before. Bow in. Yes. Your temple of yourself as you would a holy thing, you know. And that's just so like.
And this is the card. This card is called self-reverence. Yes.
So I've been speaking a lot. So let me ask you. Tell me, how is it to go from a process where the idea comes and you want to place it in other people's hands?
Well, and I love these two cards that you picked out, by the way. To me, they're two of the more, what is the word I even want to say? Mystical images. You know, they're both very geometric. The self-reverence especially looking at it in your hands, it feels very Middle Eastern to me. It feels like it's got that geometry of ancient Middle Eastern imagery and temples. And then the other one, of course, is almost this, modern art, early modern art kind of in the abstraction. Yeah. And I remember Yael describing, so the first card that you described, self-knowledge, that's actually a great example to talk about the collaboration between Yael and I, because, so yes, I had this image. The image was, or the idea that came to me was, oh, there are all these qualities or powers of the yin that I bring into my teaching and into my one-on-one work with clients. And I started writing them all down as a list. And then they quickly grew into a map that was really like a journey to a destination that, of course, we do over and over and over again. Yes, and that card has a lot of map elements in it. And then, I realized I could write about each one. And this artist, Yael Bernhardt, I'd known about her for over 20 years. I loved her work because her work carries first of all, I just love the aesthetics of her work. And there is a real shamanic quality to her work and an incredible, she brings in a lot of different style. There's indigenous, can be an indigenous sense. Obviously, she's got sort of the history of art running through her cards as well. We're always talking about that. And very feminine, very deep, very, I don't want to use the word raw. Raw isn't the right word. There's the raw card. Direct, just no holds barred. Like we're not compromising here on the power of the feminine. You keep holding up cards. There's a story for everyone. That one that you're holding up was actually the card that, to me, so that was an illustration that she had already done pre-existing to our relationship. And that, to me, was the quintessential image of the power of the yin that I wanted to convey in the deck. And now it's expanded and become so much bigger. But that one captures, to me, that card is called the Chthonic, which is a Greek word. It's a concept that Carl Jung would talk about, which is the underworld, the underbelly, the earthy, the dark, definitely the Shadowlands, a little bit of the Kali. There's definitely a crossover with Kali. And it's the feminine. And then here Yael is created, not only is she like a snaky serpenty body, which of course we also have the biblical, even the serpent has been a negative, that was bad news. And here she's taking on the power of the serpentine. And then she's got this snake power rising up through her yoni, her sexual energy in her core. And it has an indigenous, it looks like Aboriginal, kind of artwork, from Australia, from those peoples there. So I latched onto that image right away. So the other images, like coming back to self-knowledge, that's an example of a card where I had no idea. She took the message of that card, which you quoted a little bit, trace the circuitous route of your, I should pull it out myself. Let's see how fast I can find it. Here it is. Task yourself with the exploration of the undiscovered country of your depths. Trace the mysterious, circuitous paths that lead you to yourself. Make it a life study. Tirelessly seek the shining jewel of your true self. This is the ultimate act of reverence for the holy gift of your life. And she sent me this image, and I just said, what does this image mean? Where is this coming from? And she just said to me, there is an artistic perfection in this image, in the lines, and there is this differentiation between the background, which is there's a map within a map. You know, there's that blue background, which is the map, and then there is the reds, the kind of lifeblood colors of the internal map, and this coming together into the center, and there's that jewel shining at the center. And I have to say that this card has grown on me. You can imagine if I went from the image of the Thonic as being emblematic to the deck, and then she brings me this, that I was like, I'm not sure about that. But what ended up happening and has continued to happen, we're still designing aspects of the deck over time, is this beautiful trust in each other. And so, I mean, that card is straight out of an image that I had very directly that she brought to life. So when she would come up with an image like this, unless it really rubbed me the wrong way or really has felt like it just is not hitting the mark, then I have just trusted that and said, okay, that's what that card wants to be when our energy comes together. And what's so beautiful about that is that this is how it's going to work in the hands of other people. You know, like you're resonating with this card in a way that I would never imagine. And this is going to go out to countless people, hopefully be in the hands of many, many people. And so there's so much here that people can find their own entry point, you know, into the meaning of each card. And for me to attempt to have control over that is just a fool's errand. You know, it is not the way to be in the creative process. And that's so funny. I just turned over my deck too. There it was. And this is also the nature of a project like this that is carrying the energy of the yin, taking on a life of its own. You know, you were talking about your creative process, your creativity arising and saying, I will not be ignored. We are asked to, I think of creation, we're a channel for creation. It's mingling with who we are. We're not an empty blank slate. But then what's created is a third thing that exists in the world that is bigger and beyond us and has its own destiny, just like a child. You know, we raise it, we nourish it, we help shape it, we infuse it with what our values are, but then at a certain point, we have to understand that it's here to do its own work. And our job becomes supporting, enabling, admiring, and honoring that work as it goes out into the world. And so that's a way I would describe how this collaboration has worked.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing point, I think, when we have so much interest, I think, in our deck world. I don't know how to put it, you know, in the tarot and oracle world, there's a lot of interest, you know, it's quite a buzz. And at the same time, I think that this is a really good example of staying true to the nature of what oracle decks can bring. You know, for me, I think I've just already mentioned, you know, that there's such a cool part of allowing, I think, you know, everybody has their own memories, everybody has their own what it is, you know, and this was an interesting one. I picked this, I think this was around solstice. Hands, and it was a very interesting moment. You know, it's such a solstice card for me, winter solstice, and I'm a runner. I run 4 times a week, and I go into the woods near my home, and it's just so, it was so evocative because it said here, you know, guidance, the muse, the angels, your higher self, and the line here was, you're not meant to do it alone. And, you know, everything that I've been through, especially in the last, I would say 18 months, which has been quite a lot. You know, I'm someone that wants to do everything on my own. I just am like that. It's just, I'm a lone wolf amongst lone wolves kind of thing. And this card really helped me to realize that even when I think I'm alone, I'm not. And the woods are a really good place for me to remember how much I'm accompanied, because I am. I remember that strangely in the forest is where my friends come to life.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
It's not
yeah,
strange at all. That's what the card is all about. It is, yes. So this is the card guidance. And that is one of the powers of the yin, because we are not alone. We are not our own, we are too finite as far as our own energy goes. We have to be able to expand and partner with these larger presences and know that they're here to actually support us. And our job is to be receptive. Our job is to surrender at times, and be collaborative and allow those beings that are here with us. And the forest is one of the most powerful ways to feel that, absolutely, in nature.
Yeah, I also really love the little crescent moon in this, it was just
Yes.
it was just, it was just, at the back it says, about this animal presence and loved ones on the other side. And it was just so, yeah, it was just really, really like a key moment where I kind of like, was just like, it was a good reminder when this came up for some reason. It was just this reminder of like how I can think I'm alone, but actually I'm not, and I'm guided. And that's what the card was about. And that's, and it says here at the back, there's a prompt there, just waiting for you to ask. Yes. And that's my biggest challenge, is I'll never ask for help.
Yes,
that's
yes.
right? We don't ask. And I think coming back to it actually, and talking about, the power of yin, it's part of, I think, the influence of many millennia, where as women, or many women, I should say, I don't know everyone, but not allowed to speak up and say, I need help, or I'm challenged, or something has to change. There's a silence, almost as if asking is not a good thing, when actually
considered a sign of weakness rather than a sign of strength. The sign of actually recognizing your own limits and allowing something else to come in, which makes everything more powerful. Yeah, we are rewriting that right now and remembering. I call this a deck that is a guide to the remembering and the emergence of the yin. So of the power of the yin. Understanding these aspects that this deck represents, all these yin powers, these are ancient understandings. And I also feel that there is something new that is ready to come through about the power of the yin. So it is also emergent, and each one of us, male, female, however you identify, on the gender or non-gender spectrum, is carrying this, because this is the energy of nature. These are the energies of nature.
Yeah, I just thought that was so powerful. I just pulled this out and I just saw this huge white disc. It just helps me to see also that there is always a new, fresh energy coming through. I think that's, and it says at the back here, I was just reading it as you were talking about the vow, that there is a promise always, that like renewal and hope, yeah. So I think nature does that. It just always provides a very, very good cue that like, actually there's always a new season, there's always going to be a change. So yeah, I think that there's a lot more I'm going to have to explore with this deck. I'm scratching the surface.
Well, this was a great, we got to go in deep with a few cards, and I'm just so thrilled that it's touched you so, and that you're sharing it with your community and helping me to bring it out into the world.
Thank you for sharing it. I look forward to seeing the full range. I know new images have been developed, so excited actually.
Yes, people can see all the cards in the deck on my website, yinoracle.com, and we'll put our links in our notes on each of our channels. So yes,
I'll do that. Yeah, and I think it will really help those who are looking for a deck which is very connected to energy, nature. This is it's going to be great for seasons. I think it's a great seasonal deck, very, very earthy in so many ways, and nature bound. And there's a lot of air energy as well. It took me a while to realize it, but there's a lot of air and fire energy. So the elements have been really well captured, I think.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Neha. So appreciate it. And thanks everybody for tuning in and listening.
Thank you as well. I will see you all. So thank you everybody who's joined me today. I will see you all on the next episode of the Curated Shelf. And until then, take care now. Bye.
Bye.